They start young in the West African cocoa farms. This girl has been put to work clearing weeds with a machete, a cutlass. She's just 5 years old. One of tens of thousands of child labourers here in Cameroon. Etienne Babila survived 2 years on the farms. He was rescued thanks to a child labour project run by the International Labour Organization, the ILO. Now he's showing Julius Fombo, who's been working on the project, exactly what he went through. While many of his friends are still labouring in the cocoa plantations, Etienne is back at school, learning again to read and write, and now full of ambition.
I see that to be a medical doctor is good. Or to be a judge. Because if I be a judge tomorrow, I would like to judge any parents that is sending children to the farm.
That sounds very, very interesting, Etienne.
Etienne was taken out of school when he was 12. Both his parents were ill. He had to become the family's breadwinner. He was strong. He could earn up to $3 a day in the cocoa fields next to his village. But without an education, that was all he would ever do. For as long as he survived snake bites, machete wounds, and most dangerous of all, according to doctors, exposure to the highly toxic pesticides used to drench the cocoa pods. This is Cameroon's main cocoa-producing area, one of the sites in 5 West African countries selected by the ILO for the first major attempt to tackle the scandal of child labour in the cocoa farms. Most of the world's chocolate is made from West African cocoa, and the ILO estimates that nearly 300,000 school-aged children work in dangerous conditions to produce it. For Julius Fombo, the exploitation of child labour, taking children out of school to do adults' work in hazardous conditions, is a violation of human rights.
It's really serious. These are children working in the farms. It's very, very serious. I think it's even worse than slave trade, because at least adults can protect themselves, but children, their response is not like an adult.
As he says, it's also economic nonsense. A sound economy cannot be built on the back of a child.
When did you start using the machete in the field?
It's around 12 years.
Around 12 years.
Had many problems. I won.
Cuts?
Yeah.
Can we see? Where can we see? Can I see?
Yeah.
Oh, see. Very bad.
Yeah.
You see. How do you get treatment?
I just go to the house and tie it with cloth.
Yes.
Just like that.
And no, you don't go to the hospital?
No.
That's very, very sad. Your parents, is it because they have no money to take you to the hospital, or they don't just feel that they should take you to the hospital?
There was no money.
No money, yeah. What about your hand? You are comfortable when handling it?
No. Yeah.
There's some. Sad. And the treatment is the same?
Yeah. Like.
Okay.
Etienne is showing Julius how the pods are opened when children appear through the trees with heavy sacks on their heads. There is a distinction between what the ILO describes as child work, helping out with light tasks after school, and the exploitation of cheap labour. As a United Nations organisation, the ILO is committed to eliminating child labour worldwide. When the cocoa project began, workers from local organisations spent time talking to parents and farmers about what was necessary and acceptable and what was simply exploitation. In Etienne's village, as elsewhere, the community came to agree that their children should stay at school for as long as possible, that they should be protected, and that child labour was not a solution to their problems. Etienne was among the first to be rescued.
Can you tell me how happened that you stopped working in the farm and you went to school?
No, I was sitting in the house when some people came. They said that they are NGOs.
Yeah.
They said that they are fighting for children right, that they should not be working in a cocoa farm. They should go to school. I told them that I'm one of them. So they identified me, and I said that I would like to go to school. So then they gave me all what I needed. Yes, then I started going to school.
Yeah.
For Etienne to return to school, his family had to find another way of making money. The solution, with the help of the ILO's Cocoa Project, their very own restaurant. And this is today's lunch.
Okay, this is stew.
Yeah.
Yes. And about how many people will eat this?
20 people.
20 people.
About 20 people,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Rachel, Etienne's mother, was given help by the Cocoa Project to start the restaurant. She charges 250 African francs, about half a US dollar, for a plate of spicy chicken stew and plantains. 20 customers a day will give her a profit of around 3,000 francs, or 6 US dollars, enough to pay the rent, feed her family, and keep Etienne at school. Rachel explains that her husband has suffered from epilepsy since childhood, so he's never been able to work full-time, though he does brew palm wine, which they now sell in the restaurant. When she fell ill a few years ago, there was no one to provide for the family. Etienne, she says, was the strongest, so it was he who had to go to work.
Now, the means of money will not be get money where we feed the sponsor you for school.
They had to stop Etienne going to school, she says, so that he could earn money on the farm and support them all.
Money like other people, they will sponsor the people and be fit for get them.
But now she's pleased that he's back in class.
I'll be very happy as it did now. So
I'm very happy with Etienne, she says. I want him to go on to further education so that he can be a better person.
Well, I would like to be big, even like doctor or magistrate.
It's our wish that Etienne should be a medical doctor.
Please, is there any question?
The ILO's Child Labour Project has succeeded in sending 50 children back to school in this one small village, well over 1,000 throughout Cameroon, and 11,000 in the 5 countries covered by the project. Etienne is catching up on 2 years of lessons, and his teachers say he's doing well, writing and speaking English and French, necessities in this bilingual country. He's doing so well, he wants to stay on at school, but that is now in doubt. Despite its success, the 3-year project has ended. Far from becoming a judge, Etienne may have to return to the cocoa fields. In part 2, we'll look at the real price of cheap chocolate. Children soaked in dangerous chemicals. Etienne Babila survived 2 years of hard and hazardous labour in the cocoa plantations of southern Cameroon. At 12, he was taken out of school and put to work to feed his sick parents. Now, back at school and captain of the kids' football team, he's been given the chance of a new life. But only if he can leave his village to go to secondary school. Owe, like most villages here, relies on cocoa. It began as a forced labour camp 100 years ago when Cameroon was a German colony. Outside each hut, a hard square for drying cocoa beans. Over the generations, the labour camp has become a community. It has its own school. Primary education is officially free in Cameroon, and a health clinic. But when the price of cocoa collapsed a few years ago, so did the wages of the cocoa workers. Families were forced to send their children to the farms. A pioneering project by the UN's International Labour Organization has begun to document the extent of child labour. Well over 250,000 children in the 5 main cocoa-producing countries of West Africa. 200,000 of them in Côte d'Ivoire alone. Tens of thousands here in Cameroon. A quarter of child labourers are illiterate. The ILO project has also documented the dangers. Machete cuts, young bodies crippled from carrying massive loads, and poisoning by pesticides. Parents and farmers are aware that the chemicals are toxic, but these children are given no protective clothing and apparently no advice on how to avoid exposure to the spray. We were asked not to identify the children or the farmer they were working for. Julius Fonbo runs a development agency which has been working with the Child Labour Project. He asks Etienne to show him the pesticides the children use.
What is here? What is inside here?
It is Gamalin 20.
Do you know what Gamalin 20 is?
Yeah, it is used for spraying.
Did anybody ever tell you that it was very dangerous to use?
Yeah, my father told me that if I'm using it, I should be very careful because it is poisonous.
It's poisonous?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you are using it, do you use anything to protect yourself, to cover?
Nothing.
Okay. How old were you when you started using this Gamalin 20 in spraying?
Around 12 years to 13 years.
12 years to 13 years.
Gamalin 20 contains the insecticide lindane, a potent organochlorine. The makers say that used in accordance with their instructions, it should not cause problems. But those instructions include wearing a mask to avoid contact with the eyes and clothing to protect the skin. An overdose can cause permanent nervous damage. Children are more sensitive to its effects.
When you use this Gamalin in spraying, do you feel some itches, your eyes, or
Yes.
Yeah.
It is very stinky.
Very stinky? You inhale it, it's stinky. So when you do like that, what do you do? When you go home, what happens?
I bathe very well. Just that's all.
That's all, just bathe.
Yes.
He mixes gamalin with a powder, a fungicide called ridamil. This is officially classified as moderately toxic. The makers, Novartis, say users should wear gloves, a face mask, boots, and protective clothing. Etienne has none of these, nor do the other children we filmed spraying the trees. Julius is shocked.
Etienne, this is very, very interesting, and because I've read about this, I've heard about this, but I've never had a chance to see it happen, and I'm really seeing you, a young man like you, a child actually, spraying. I think it's surprising for me. How do you feel in doing all this?
It's difficult, but One may do it just to earn living.
So you were doing it just to earn a living?
Yeah.
That's really, really, really serious. Have you seen other children doing this?
In this same
In other farms around the area, working like this?
many children are doing.
Okay. Can we say they are up to 100?
Yes.
100, more than 100 children
Yeah.
in the farm doing this?
Yeah.
The ILO estimates that 152,000 children are employed spraying pesticides in Cameroon, Nigeria and Côte d'Ivoire. In Etienne's house, more cans of pesticide. Thiodan is a potent organochlorine, classed as dangerous by the World Health Organization. It can damage the nervous system and in severe cases cause seizures. Bayer, the makers, list precautions on the pack. Etienne takes no precautions. And calidim, a poisonous organophosphate. The makers say that children and adolescents should not be exposed to this because of the health risks. It's not only the people who do the spraying who are at risk from these chemicals. This man is filling his can and spraying the trees next to a stream in which a mother and her child are washing. Nearby, children are cleaning dishes. The ILO reports highlight the risks of these pesticides, but the cocoa project has ended. The issue is who will step in to protect the children at risk of long-term health effects. The restaurant, set up at home by Etienne's mother so that her son could return to school, is proving a success. And Etienne's father has developed a lucrative sideline in palm wine. He buys the stumps of old palm trees from a farmer and drains the sap. It collects overnight in a can. The juice ferments naturally. The ILO project has helped 650 families in Cameroon to start their own businesses to make up for the money that their children once earned on the farms. Local communities and the government have been persuaded that child labour and child trafficking, buying and selling children for work, or worse, prostitution, really does exist and has to be stopped.
When we started this project in this country, the awareness nationally was non-existent, because even at the level of the state, they refused that there was no child labor in Cameroon. There was no child trafficking. Through this project, we've been able to raise national awareness, to mobilize the state, to turn national opinion, say, 180 degrees. And so we hope, as the project comes to an end, all the people that we've worked with who now understand what we mean by child labor, that they would be able to now harness, come together and take over from where we are living. Investing in a child today is better for the future, and keeping the child out of school is actually delaying the child's future and perpetuating poverty.
There's a saying that when there's a will, there is a way. And I think there are a lot of goodwill people around the world, institutions around the world. And I think we already reached a level where we too have the will to do it, the good will to do that. And I believe that the way would come.
The West African Cocoa Project was prompted by reports of child trafficking and child slavery in the cocoa fields. The cocoa industry is committed to putting a stop to the worst forms of child labour. The United Nations Children's Fund and the World Bank have allied themselves with the ILO's child labour programme. Yet despite all that goodwill, the unsavoury practice of exploiting children for the sake of cheap chocolate continues. The 50 children rescued and returned to school in Owe may be safe for the time being. But Etienne still doesn't know if he'll go on to secondary school and a new life, or return to the farms.